and I hold the Pepper Guyberson Endowed Chair in Environmental Studies. And I've been faculty at UC Santa Cruz since 2008 and Provost of Colleges 9 and 10 since 2014. And I'm joined today by the wonderful Sarah Woodside Bury.
Thank you, Flora. Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. My name is Sarah Woodside Bury. I also use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm the Senior Director for College Student Life here at College 9 and College 10. And so together with my counterpart, Provost Flora Liu, we get to co-lead our two colleges on both the academic side and the student life side to ensure a holistic education for your students, all the way from move-in day and their first year and orientation, if they are able to do that, but all the way from their first year, all the way till commencement. And so we look forward to getting to know you and your students as we embark on this next year. So I've been on the campus, just as a way of introduction, I've been on the campus since 2001, before some of our buildings were even built, and joined College 9 and College 10 as a staff person, and have done different positions and different roles through the years, but I'm thrilled to continue to engage and support our College 9 and College 10 affiliates, no matter where they live. And I have a master's degree in higher ed and student affairs from Colorado State University, and did my undergrad at UC San Diego. So those of you down south in San Diego, it's great to have you up here in Santa Cruz. So thank you and welcome. We're really here this evening to introduce ourselves, but also to allow folks to ask any questions that you may have. Hopefully you've had a chance to watch our welcome video. And if you haven't, it's linked to the same pages that Gabby has been linking into our chat. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Gabby Darlak, who's also here, one of our dedicated staff people, who's here to help answer questions and put information into the chat as well. So thank you, Gabby, for being here, and thank you all for being here. So Flora, do you want to say anything else, or should we open it up for?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Maybe by way of just more background. So I received my undergraduate degree from Stanford University and my doctorate from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And before coming to UCSC, I was faculty at UNC Chapel Hill for many years, but was always looking forward to sort of being back in California. So it's been wonderful being here and working closely with Sarah and our fantastic group of staff and faculty and our student leaders. And we are all just extremely excited for this fall, for this upcoming year. And it was wonderful seeing everyone during move-in these past few days, and just the excitement and sort of getting folks back on campus. And so we're happy to have you, and eager to address any questions that you may have. And again, also thanks to Gabby for her help in the chat. So, okay. So we can see, all right, so the welcome video link. So hopefully that's, Gabby, you're seeing that. And there's a question from Morgan: what would be the best way to get a frosh connected with a slug mentor? So I'm going to go ahead and address that. One of the things that I'm really, really proud of in my career is the mentorship that that faculty and students are able to forge during their undergraduate years. It was really pivotal for me personally, as in my own professionalization, to have started working with a mentor when I was an undergraduate. And typically what we do is talk to students about how to forge that mentorship relationship. And so from the very basics, we really encourage students that, and maybe you hear this all the time, but go to office hours. And as a faculty member, I can tell you that we have office hours, and oftentimes people don't come. And it's kind of a bummer because we really look forward to having that conversation. And even if students don't have a question about the material, or they're not, they don't have a grading issue or anything like that, we really encourage them to go and perhaps just open up a conversation and share with the faculty member a little bit about them and what excites them about that particular field or topic. Or I also like to tell students to take the time to actually check out the faculty member's webpage, or even better, to maybe read one of their publications. So they're going into that, that conversation knowing something about what the faculty member has written, and they can sort of ask questions about that. And I can tell you that when students have done that for me, it's blown me away. I've gotten really excited about it. And, and it's gone even to the point for students who came to faculty office hours, would show up and they'd read more and they get really excited about the topics that I was researching. And it turned out that they ended up writing a senior thesis with me, going into the field and conducting their own independent research, right? So oftentimes it's really taking these incremental steps and students being able to say, like Professor so-and-so, I'm excited about the work you do. Is there something that I can do to support your lab or your research projects? There's also wonderful funding at UCSC. For example, something called the Building Belonging Program, in which faculty and students can actually apply for funding for students to do faculty research projects with them and get that kind of research experience. And oftentimes, I'll just end here because I could talk about this like for hours, but I'll just end by saying that for students to really see the mentoring relationship as a give and take, right? And because I've also had students who like showed up in my office hours, plopped them down in a seat and said, okay, Professor Liu, I'm ready for you to mentor me now. I just have to, say, okay, well, let's talk a little bit about what inspires you and to have that student really demonstrate that kind of motivation and initiative. And also that academic, commitment as well, I think is really important. I mean, there's because that mentoring relationship is one of commitment from both sides, and for students to sort of see that as well. So I'll just pause there.
Thanks, Flora. And then I just also want to highlight that there's a couple of other kind of ways in which students can be mentored, even outside of the classroom too. Right now we have college guides that are working with groups of students, small groups of students, to get them oriented to the campus. And they're doing that via Discord server, so online, as well as in person. So no matter where your student is, there's a way for them to get connected with that college guide group, and those college guides can help them kind of point them in the right direction, get them connected to other resources or tutoring opportunities or other mentorship opportunities. So besides what Flora has described, there's also a lot of out of classroom opportunities for students to get mentored by their peers. And then if your students are living on campus, there's also the resident assistants or RAs that are living on the floors with our students, and often they serve as mentors to your students as well, and help them, guide them through their transition at the university. So whether they're living on campus or off, or whether they're doing their studies virtually this year, there's lots of ways that they can connect to their peers, like I said, through either the college guide program or the resident assistants or RAs if they're living on campus.
And I just wanted to add that that in the chat, sort of what I shared about mentoring and just general advice. There's in the students' materials during orientation week, I actually wrote them a letter, and I will be meeting with students alongside with the core course coordinators this Wednesday to meet and greet with students. And so they have opportunities to interact with us, to ask questions. But another amazing resource for students are, of course, the college advisors. And the college advisors are doing, virtual and in-person office hours. They have drop-in hours. There's peer advisors. And so it's maybe, I think, Betsy, you were saying that maybe your student doesn't necessarily want to hear the advice from you. But really, I think it's just great to encourage your student to go and talk with peer advisors if that feels like a more comfortable space, or with the professional advisors. And they're always welcome to come and talk with me, the provost, to go to faculty office hours and find out when that timing is. And so the office hours for our core courses, we are having those both mostly in person, but there's also opportunities for students to meet virtually if that works better for them.
Thanks, Flora. And then I'm seeing some specific questions about a College 10 affiliate living at the Village. And at this moment, I was just looking on the websites really quickly to see if I could figure out a way to answer that question about your packages or the students' packages. But at this moment, that's what I know to be true, is that students need to come up to the college and not to worry, because your student likely has classes all over the campus. And so they'll be trekking, every which way to get to their classes, to their office hours, to a dining hall, to the gym, etc. And so College 10 will likely be in their circle of orbit, so to speak, or they can hop on a campus shuttle and be able to, in between classes or work or internships or whatever, be able to stop by during the open mailroom hours to get their packages. And the mailrooms themselves, like if they're just expecting letters or cards or things that would fit into a little mail slot, that's open 24/7. So no matter when your student gets around to checking their mail, they can do that through their own code and get their mail that might be coming through the letters slot. And then packages have certain hours. But not to worry, your student is going to be trekking all across campus all the time and is likely going to be up here on the hill taking classes anyway. So the village is all downhill from there. So the end of the day will be a lot easier for your student to get there. And like I said, the shuttles are running as well as the buses. So that should be easy going. And then in terms of I'm just seeing another sort of general question about, like, do we share all of this information with your students? And yes, so your students have been going through a summer orientation series that has all been online. And then they're also going through a welcome week series that some of which is online or virtual, some of which is in person, depending on where they are. And so your students are going to be getting inundated, so much so that they're probably saturated with information, but they'll be getting this through their college guides, through us. We've actually a similar video that we did for all of you. Flora and I did a video for our students. And then there's also lots of videos that our students have done, and or live Zoom sessions or in-person sessions, where our incredibly capable professional staff and student staff have imparted lots of different information to our students. And then, like I said, those college guides are with our students throughout the year. So as questions come up, our college guides are there to help to support all of our students in answering those questions. And they often think, are kind of anticipating what those questions are. So we're running tours right now, for example. We're getting to know the campus if they're living here, or helping them to navigate our various websites if they're not living here, right? So a lot of that is happening and is part of our kind of college guide curriculum, so to speak, so that your students are getting oriented alongside all of you. So that's just another question I saw in the chat. Flora, are you seeing another one?
Yeah, so Sarah, there was a question about a student who's waiting for a visa and how to sort of stay connected. And just to reiterate, I think it would be wonderful for that student who is international and ready to try to come to the US as soon as their visa is approved, to reach out to one of the college advisors and be able to start communicating just about deadlines and sort of course selection, and maybe sort of be put in touch with some of the faculty to sort of know the situation. One thing that I do like to emphasize to all students is that when things come up, that college advisor, because the college advisors see the student throughout the entire journey here at UC Santa Cruz, that your college advisor is kind of your sort of the nexus of information and support. So for example, when there have been situations where students have a family emergency or something happens. And so what we'll do is we'll mobilize with the college advisors to communicate with their faculty, right, and in support of that student. Sarah, did you want to say anything else about the visa situation, student?
Yeah, thank you, Flora. And we look forward to when we can welcome your student here in person. But in the meantime, as I was saying earlier, that the College Guide program that's through the Discord channel is a great way right now. A lot of students have been engaging in the Discord channel. There's several different channels going all at once, and students are communicating about all sorts of things, and creating bonds and friendships that way, which is maybe not my orientation to the world, but it seems to be working daunting for a lot of our students. So I would direct them to their college guide or to our Discord channel. All of those links are all found, and maybe Gabby can put some of them in our chat as well. But through our College 9 and College 10 events page too. So if they haven't already, downloaded that calendar or linked that calendar to their Google Calendar, that would be another great way for your student to kind of see what's happening and be able to participate even virtually. Like I said, a lot of our programs this week are all hybrid or virtual in nature. So they're not, your student isn't missing because they're not here. They can still engage through those programs. So it's called the College 9 and College 10 event calendar, and it's linked to our websites as well. And they can just add it to their Google Calendar so they can see real time what's happening. And it'll translate to the time zone that they're in. So that's helpful too if they have Google Calendar. And that goes for all of our off-campus residents too. I know that there was a question about specific resources for off-campus students. Those same two things, I would say both our events calendar and the Discord channel is a great way to connect with other off-campus folks or other international folks, and to say, hey, hey, can we, or we're in the same class, can we, can we connect over Zoom or what have you to connect and either form a study group or looking to get to know other people. So Discord is one great way, checking out our events calendar and then participating in those events, and taking some initiative to kind of reach out to some fellow slugs who may be living off campus, or living in other places in the world. So those are a couple of resources. And then there was just
a quick question. Go ahead, Sarah. About the mail.
Sorry, I was going to say there's a quick question again about the mail accounts. So students who are living on campus, they are assigned a mailbox. It got sent to their email this week, so they should check their UCSC email accounts. And they were assigned a mailbox, and it gave them their code to get into their mailbox. It also gave them the address that folks should send mail packages, etc. to. So that all came at their UCSC email. So have them forward you that email so you know how to reach them and mail packages to them as well. Great, I'm just catching up on questions. Flora, did you have?
Yeah, so so there's a question about the, is on-campus housing or dorm mandatory for the first year only or the first 2 years?
Yeah, great question. And actually living on campus is not mandatory at all. In fact, so any of the years, we do guarantee first year students to be able to live on campus. And that's what we've been able to do in years past. We were able to guarantee first and second years, and then COVID struck. And so we've had to rethink our housing plans and figure out how it is that we could support the most amount of students. This year, it's really geared towards first and second year students. So our sophomore students in our first years are the primary residents this year. But again, it's not mandatory. We try to guarantee some level of housing, right? And like I said, for first years for sure. And then we hope to get back to our second year guarantee eventually. And then there's different categories of students that have a longer period of a guarantee. If they're EOP, which is our Education Opportunity Program, or they're international students, or some of our scholar students, honor students, there's a couple different types of guarantees. It doesn't guarantee them an exact space like an apartment or this, but it allows our students to be able to live on campus for the period of their guarantee. And then after that, we still have had a number of continuing students, so third and fourth and fifth year, even seniors, who have been able to live on campus and secure housing. It just, again, depends on the demand and the supply of housing that we have. So hopefully that answers that question. And then I saw a question about if, depending on the type of insurance, does a student need to pay for COVID testing? And so I'll just take a moment to quickly talk about COVID testing on campus. COVID testing is all free to students. It's even free for staff and faculty, thankfully. And so it's run through our Student Health Center, and our Student Health Center will have clinics all across the campus, or they call them sort of testing kiosks all across the campus. And students will be able to test per the frequency that they are guided to. So for example, if it's an unvaccinated student, it's tested every 4 days. Right now we're testing everyone who lives on campus within the first 5 to 7 days of their residence, of taking residence. So everyone is going to be tested between now and the 5 to 7 days when they first move onto campus. Then unvaccinated folks will be every 4 days, and then all students can test once a week, or even higher frequencies if they feel like they need to. So that's all free, and that can be done at any of the kiosks across campus. They do that and they access that through their health e-messenger system, which again, you don't have to have the insurance or the campus insurance to be able to access that. All of us can, even staff and faculty. Health e-messenger, that's where you go to sign up for a time. So hopefully that addresses the COVID testing question.
Pompeo Garcia, I see your hand up. I think you might be muted.
Am I there now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. This is our first time that my daughter has been to the university. I've never been to the university.
Uh-huh.
I don't have any. We were not prepared. How much is this? This is gonna cost. She did get us a scholarship, but me and my daughter are being kind of a little. Well, I've been a little bit stressed out about just using the scholarship for the school, and I don't know if there's any other help, like financial aid without not borrowing money, but scholarships maybe that she can apply for. Yeah, if there's any help for that.
Of course, yeah, great question. And of course, I know that's on a lot of people's minds. And so our financial aid office is the best place to actually connect with, and perhaps Gabby can add the link to how to contact our financial aid office. They deal with scholarships and all different types of financial aid grants, everything, so loans, etc. So they would be the best people to connect with. And your student can even go and ask those questions, or you can ask those questions. And the financial aid office is really well versed. They have different advisors who can help to guide you through all of your various, if you have specific situations that you want to talk to them about, they can walk you through all the different options. So the financial aid office is the best place to connect around financial issues. Thanks, Gabby.
Yeah.
She already put it in the chat too.
Yeah, I just don't want to get into. I don't want her to get in financial owing a lot of money. So we're trying to keep it as simple as possible without her borrowing money. So
Of course, we completely understand. Yeah. So financial aid. Sorry, go ahead, please.
And I don't even know how much this scholarship is gonna cover. So that's what I'm kind of concerned. I'm also concerned about the food. What covers? We don't want to spend all that money on certain things, and I want to try and see what I can do for her. But that's basically the question the most important question that I have.
Yes, of course, of course. So again, I'd guide you to the financial aid office, and then also another great resource to talk through those kinds of situations in terms of resources for basic needs like food and all of that is our slug support group. So perhaps Gabby can add that to the chat as well. But slug support is another great resource on campus, and they can also talk to your student about different resources that they have access to as a student. But certainly starting with financial aid is probably the best bet. And then slug support can also add to that if that's helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you. So there is an important question that I just wanted to touch base on here, and it had to do with the student, perhaps as the student is transitioning to the university. How are they doing? Are they going to orientation? Are they going to classes? Are they thriving? And how do we know? And this is a really important question. And so, all FROSH are required to take the core course. And it is in the first quarter. So soon, literally in about a week, the students will be taking, they're having their first sessions of core course. And as provost and our academic team, we oversee the hiring and support of an incredible group of faculty who teach core. And the core course will probably be one of the smallest classes your student will have in their first term at UCSC. And the point of core is to support them in being able to build a sense of belonging here at the university, to hone their academic skills, critical thinking, critical reading, things like that. Also, it gives us an opportunity to talk about the themes of the college. And really importantly, the instructors work closely with the advising team to make sure that students are showing up, that they're doing okay, that they are really hitting the ground running here at the university. And we have a system, Slug Success, in which basically there's a comprehensive communication platform for the core instructors and the advisors and the departmental advisors when the student declares a major, to be able to communicate about how the student is doing. So we're really, keeping our finger on the pulse and identifying if students are not going to class, et cetera, so that they don't fall through the cracks. So, and part of the question that was asked is, do you have a mechanism for letting parents know? And it's important for me to say that through FERPA, through the Family Educational and Records Privacy Act, which is a federal law, your student is deemed, because they are an adult, right? Their educational records are the purview of the student. So we actually cannot share educational records with the parent or the family unless the student has expressly stated that that is okay. So it's so that's important for you all to know, because oftentimes parents especially are like, well, we're paying for college and we want to know how transcripts and how the student's doing. And so you just need to be aware of FERPA protocol, and students can do that waiver so that their families can get access to their educational records for that to happen.
Thanks, Flora. And I'm seeing a number of questions related to COVID and COVID protocols, et cetera. So I'll try to address some of those. One is about insurance cards. If you have signed up for the UC insurance, and the health center would know directly, but I believe your student does get an insurance card, or at least insurance information electronically. So I would guide your student to the health center if they have questions around that. And the health center has a whole department around insurance, so they can help if your student is confused or doesn't have that. And then does student health insurance provide access to mental health counseling services? So I'll back up a little bit, and that is that any student, no matter if they have insurance, the campus insurance or an offsite insurance, they do have access to mental health counseling services right here on campus. It's one of our resources on campus, our counseling and psychological services, or CAPS, C-A-P-S. We happen to be right up the hill from CAPS and the Student Health Center at College 9 and College 10. So we're lucky, we're really close by. But if students want to make an appointment with a counselor or a mental health practitioner, they can do so right here on campus. It's free to them. It's a free service as part of their tuition and registration in terms of what they're paying to be here. So students can access that. And then if the CAPS counselor feels like they need to work with someone more, ongoing or beyond the services or scope of our team, then they'll work with whatever insurance the student has to try to figure out the most cost-effective way to do that, so that students aren't paying out of pocket, or they're just paying their copay, or whatever the case may be. So that's one piece. I know that's not all directly related to COVID, but it's important to know kind of how this process works and how your students can get access to the kind of support that they need. So a lot of that is all through our Student Health Center and through CAPS, or our counseling and psychological services. So in terms of the COVID-19 quarantining rules, should someone test positive or be exposed to someone who is, Our campus is running all of those tests. As you know, we have our own lab that's running those. We work closely with our student health center. Student health center will first and foremost call your student and let them know you either need to be in quarantine or isolation, depending on the results of their test and the symptoms, et cetera. And so the health center will walk your student through exactly what they need to do. We have a quarantine and isolation designated space on campus where students will be redirected to. So if they're in a shared living situation, all of those roommates would be tested if they hadn't already been. And then potentially the students or the students who test positive would then be relocated to a quarantine or isolation housing unit for a period of time, depending on the circumstances for what's needed. And the Student Health Center and our doctors and nurses and health practitioners there are the ones, helping to guide the student as to what they need to do depending on the exposure, et cetera. So we do our contact tracing through them as well. They have a great team that have been not only doing the testing and supporting quarantine isolation, but they've also been doing a lot of contact tracing. So if your student works on campus or if they were in class that day, they would notify appropriately, not saying any private health information or anything like that, but appropriately making contact with folks that may have been exposed. So if one of us, like for example, I'm a staff person and I've been working here and present on campus in my office for, this whole last 2 years, even though the campus has been shut down, we've been housing students. So I've been notified a couple of times, like a positive case came through the building. And so they want, make sure that you get tested and make sure that you quarantine if you have symptoms, et cetera. So they walk you through everything that you need to do, whether you're a staff member and or if a student is in a working situation, they would notify the other students or other employees to make sure that folks are taking care of them. And then we have folks in our housing side, because our students will be quarantining or isolating in another location on campus. We have folks who act as what we call quarantine buddies, and our staff reaches out to the student and checks in with them, sees if they need mail or they need anything from the pharmacy or food is delivered, water is delivered. We transport them there. So really all of their needs are taken care of. So that's kind of what that process looks like. And hopefully that addresses some of them. I'm now just scrolling through in case there were other COVID-19 related questions, but I think I caught them. Flora, unless you see anything else.
No, that was great. And if there's follow-up questions, please put them in the chat. I wanted to address an earlier question. I think it was about the computer science major starting in College 9 or College 10. So I just wanted to clarify that students from all disciplines and divisions from across campus live at College 9 and College 10. So it is not exclusive to any particular disciplinary background or field. And that is really fantastic because what that allows for is for students not only bringing their personal backgrounds to enrich each other's experiences, but they're interested in all different fields, from the arts and humanities to the social sciences, to physical and biological sciences, to engineering and computer science, right? So all across the board. And so so this is why we have our college advisors working closely with departmental advisors. So once your student declares their major or combined major or multiple majors, and depending on what they want to do, they will work with that departmental advisor to really go in to dig deep into the specifications of completing that major. And the department and college advisors work together to be able to support your student. And I have to say that, we have quite a few students at College 9 and College 10 who are interested in computer science, engineering, and those fields, as well as the many other fields that we offer at UCSC.
Great. I'm just scrolling to make sure we're not missing anything. And there was an earlier question about protocols for parents, friends, family, and what they need to do when visiting students. So for move-in week, we've been really clear that we really only want 2 guests to be accompanying our students at this time, and that you need to do our guest symptom checker. And so right now, what we understand is that any guests from off campus should always be doing the guest symptom checker to ensure, first of all, that you're cleared to come to campus. And we're asking that folks do that. so that we're really, trying to limit potentially, further spread of COVID-19. But then in terms of visiting, so you can arrange with your student can let you into the building. There was a period of time last year during COVID where no guests were allowed in the building whatsoever. And so we were asking all residents to not let anyone in the building. And that was in fact a violation of our student policies if they did let someone into the building. But normally if COVID is not rearing its ugly head and things are going okay, normally you would just want to call and let your student know that you're coming. And at this point, you would do your COVID symptom checker. If you're cleared to come, then you're welcome to come onto campus, and your student can either let you in, if it's okay with their roommates to have you there. Inside, you always need to be masked everywhere right now on campus. Anywhere inside, you must be masked. They're optional outside, but inside masks are required. So that would be the other thing to pay attention to. And then just arranging with your student. Maybe it's you're meeting them to pick them up, to take them out to lunch or dinner or something, and you can meet them, in any parking lot nearby, et cetera. So those are the kind of protocols. We're not a campus that checks, in terms of, we don't have like a entrance or exit on campus where we can check people coming in or out. So it would be up to you and your student how to arrange that, as well as, ensuring that COVID protocols are followed. So that's one question.
So the question about how students get to know each other, how do they start forming friendships and connections, especially for students, for example, for our returning sophomores who did not have anything remotely resembling a normal first year and often are coming to campus really for the first time and getting situated. And I think this is where the college system really shines, because as these intimate living and learning communities, the idea is to provide, like sort of a smaller community within the larger institution for students to feel connected, to be able to get to know each other, to get to know the staff and faculty, to be able to have a much more rewarding and transformative experience at the university. So there are so many ways in which students get to know each other. At colleges 9 and 10, as sister colleges, there's a ton of overlapping opportunities and events and programs. I'm just going to hit some highlights here, and I would have your student reach out to college advising to learn more, or the websites, or come and talk with peer advisors or college guides, right? There's so many different folks who can get them plugged into lots of things at the colleges and beyond, right? Because there's also other student organizations on campus. But we offer things such as the Practical Activism Conference, which are opportunities for your student. For example, if they're interested in issues about society and making the world a better place, they can become organizers of PAC. We have these weekend retreats called Multicultural Community Weekend and Intercultural Community Weekend, which is a way for students who apply and get selected to go and actually get to know people like over a course of a weekend. And it's really, it's forming such intensive bonds and really being able to share about their backgrounds and positionalities. And it's a fantastic mentorship from staff and other student leaders for those events. We have programs in which students get to know each other because they're out there in the community doing critical service learning and critical volunteering and engagement with community partners in places such as Watsonville and Salinas, for example. And so, Sarah, I'm going to let you chime in here as well, because I know that there's other things that you want to share about the ways that students can get involved and also how we're supporting our sophomores.
Yeah, great start, Flora. And of course, we could probably spend the next hour talking about all the different resources, because they're not only available to our rising sophomores or sophomore students, but or students living here on campus or off campus. And I know there was a question earlier about, I have a student living at the Village and not at the college, so how do they stay connected? So I'll just reiterate one more time, really ensuring that your student is linking the College 9 and College 10 events calendar to their Google Calendar. That's how they can, no matter where they are, virtual or in person, on campus, off campus, in a different location across campus, they can get connected to what is happening at our college or sponsored by our college, even virtually. So really checking out those events calendars. And then we have a great whole section of our website dedicated to getting involved. and it talks, I think it's called Find Your Community. Gabby can probably put that in there. Yeah, thank you. Gabby read my mind. It's in the Find Your Community website. And that is a great place for students to start if they're thinking about getting involved in a club or an organization, or doing a leadership opportunity, or taking advantage of some of the retreats that Flora mentioned. Those are all linked there. There's even some sort of like how-to videos, how to get involved and how to do this, that are a part of that Find Your Community, each of those websites there. So students can really get connected to all the various clubs, organizations, internships, paid positions, these workshops that we talked about, these weekend retreats, all the different ways in which they can get involved, no matter where they are, whether they're virtual, here on campus, or elsewhere on campus. So hopefully that helps give you a sense. And then I'm seeing a number of questions related to living on campus. So I'm going to try to scroll through some of those and hit a few of them as I go. There's a question about Wi-Fi, and of course that's important for students who are going to be doing some remote classes or online classes as well. And so definitely, if your student is having Wi-Fi issues, Res Wi-Fi or ITS, either one, Gabby can link those in our chat. Those would be great resources for your student to connect with. I know there's limited cell service depending on where you are on campus too. So, just encouraging your student to kind of take a look at where is it in their room that gets best cell service, or outside, or someplace else. So checking on that would be good for them to think about. And then we also have, if students are wanting, there are some rooms where we can actually turn the Ethernet on if we need to do that. So students would just need to let the housing office know, but mostly that would come through ITS or Res Wi-Fi. They would want to troubleshoot it first and make sure if something is not working right, that they're dealing with that there. So that's one piece that I know was asked about, was around cell service and Wi-Fi. So Res Wi-Fi and ITS. Then there was a question about shuttles or transportation around campus. So again, that's related to kind of living or being on campus. And yes, there's a UCSC shuttle that does loops around campus every 15 minutes, 20 minutes or so, depending on the day or night. And that is all on our TAPS website. So again, Gabby can link that when she gets a second, but the TAPS website has all of that information and what directions they go and what stops are close by. And we have a stop right at the base of our hill. And then we also have our Metro, Santa Cruz Metro also comes to campus. So that's our public transportation system for Santa Cruz County. And that gets them all across campus, but also gets them off campus to a variety of locations, to the beaches, to downtown, to Safeway, to anywhere that they need to go. It also gets them to the main metro. All of that is free for students. All of what I've just described on our Santa Cruz Metro, they just show their card. And then if they wish to go, or they need to get over the hill or get to local airports or someplace else, once they get to Santa Cruz Metro and they leave the county, then there is a slight fee. So $4 or something like that to get over the hill, which would connect them to all those major airports. So that's all done through there. And then I know that at certain times of the year, we also sometimes sponsor different shuttles. The campus does. So again, TAPS would be the great website to check out for that. And then in terms of applying for on-campus housing in the future, so winter or spring quarters or even next fall, students should be encouraged to fill out their application, and it goes through their portal, their student portal, where they can fill out their application. And if a student is interested in winter, there's going to be a certain period of time where they're able to apply, and spring, so on. And then for the following year, there's another period to apply. So students should pay attention to that calendar and make sure that their application is in during that time. So that's good for students to know for thinking about how it is that they would live there the following year. I know I'm jumping all over the place, but I see another question about heaters. And yes, we do not have air conditioning in our buildings. We only have heaters, and those are on a schedule that's set by the campus that has usually worked well for our students. But if students are having heat issues, they can let our facilities folks know by filling out a fix-it ticket. So fixit.ucsc.edu. Again, we'll put that in the chat. So if your student has any issue with anything inside of their residence hall room or apartment room. Fix it is what they need to do. And we have a campus facilities and maintenance team who will come around and help to support students. And yes, question about laundry machines. Yes, our laundry machines, you pay for them. It's all done via a credit card. So they just have to swipe and get that all set up so that they can pay for their laundry regularly. It's still, I want to say 75 cents to wash and $1.50 to dry or something like that. I could have that reversed. But yes, so that is all happening. And then I want to address the food piece. There was a question about safe meals in the dining halls, given that it's buffet, etc. And yeah, we have gone through various iterations of dining this year, given the COVID protocol. Our dining follows county, state, and city ordinances around COVID protocols. And so they are following all those, as well as the UC system gives us protocols for how it is that we need to do food service and food handling. We're definitely on the more conservative end, even though it feels like there's a lot of people coming through. They are sanitizing everything. They're changing out tongs on a way more regular basis than they ever have before. They have the splash guards in front of all the food, etc. So students also have the option, if they're nervous, to get a to-go meal every time they come in. If they'd prefer, they just ask at the front that they want a to-go box. And they can do it that way if that feels more comfortable. But I know that our dining is on, high alert and are making sure that they're following all of those protocols based on county and state regulations, as well as the UC regulations. Okay, I think I covered a bunch of those housing related questions all at once. Oh, there was one about security. Sorry, one more, and then we'll move on to another subject, but security at each residence hall building and floor. So all of our residence halls are on a key card. And if you are assigned to one residence hall, you're able to get into that residence hall with your key card, your ID card, and then you have a brass key to get into your room. For our apartments, there's a brass key to get into the exterior door of their apartment, and then a brass key to get into their bedroom. We ask that students do not lend those keys out, do not share their keys, none of that, so that they can maintain security of their spaces. We ask that they don't prop their doors, etc. If any of the exterior entrances to our residence halls are propped for more than 15 seconds or whatever it is, there's an alarm that goes off that gets sent to our phone. We ensure that those doors are closed and are locked 24/7. So only the people that belong in that building can get into that building. They're all propped right now. So some of you are like, I didn't hear an alarm when I held the door open during move-in. That is true, because all of our doors are unlocked during move-in, just so that folks can easily come and go. But I think starting at 5 o'clock each day, we've locked them. And now, because today is the last official day of move-in, they will be locked 24/7 and only accessible to the people that have key cards. So hopefully that addresses that.
And there was an insurance question.
Great. Yeah. Any other insurance, or about renter's insurance, or about medical insurance?
This was medical insurance.
Okay.
The student has medical insurance under the parent's name. This insurance covers Northern California. Does the student need additional medical insurance for the college?
Great. And again, I'm going to direct medical insurance questions, since they're all very specific and nuanced, back to our student health center and to our insurance specialists there, and they can be able to address those questions. I wouldn't want to give you mis or wrong information around that. But since I did mention renter's insurance, we do encourage renter's insurance. We actually have a rental insurance program that students could opt into during their application process, or even after that. So if a student wants more information about the rental insurance, if they're not covered on your own insurance, usually that is the case. So I would encourage you to look at your own insurance to see if that covers a rental insurance for your dependents. So if they want more information about that, they can email our housing office at 9housing10@ucsc.edu. So I know Gabby will put that in there too.
Great. We had a question about the honors program, and I just wanted to address that. So at UCSC, we have the College Scholars Program, and formerly known as the honors program. And there's certain students who are admitted what we call fall start. So as they're applying for admission to UC Santa Cruz, they're identified as being eligible for the honors program. And so they're able to sort of start the honors program and when they come to the institution. But we also have the program called Spring Start. So the way that Spring Start works is that students, especially depending upon how they do in the core course and also their interest in the College Scholars Program, are able to apply for admission into the College Scholars Program, or CSP for short. And CSP, what it offers students is the ability to engage with faculty. And for example, it's sort of like at faculty, dinners or luncheons or things like that. And in addition to that, there are certain small seminars that are under the College Scholars Program. So these are seminars that are offered that are only eligible to members of the College Scholars Program to take, and they tend to be courses that are pretty intimate seminars around issues of research activities. So they can be research in the biological sciences, and we, for example, this fall we're offering a College Scholars seminar about water justice in College 9. So, so if your student is interested in gaining more research experience and they really excel in their core course and are doing well in their classes, I would encourage them to keep their ears perked because we'll be sending out information on how they can apply for entrance into what we call Spring Start for the College Scholars Program. And so they at the end of their first year, they would, if they were accepted, they would get involved. And then the beginning of their second year, they would take those things such as those seminars that I was talking about. And then maybe ask Abby to send that link about the College Scholars Program if she hasn't already. Oh, great. Thank you, did. You're on my mind. Thanks, Gabby.
Perfect. So I saw a few other questions related to some housing matters. I'll come back to you. One is about, there are a couple around ceiling and bunk beds being bunked too high, et cetera. So that same fix-it ticket system that I alluded to earlier and that Gabby put in the chat, fixit.ucsc.edu. If there is an issue with that, depending on height or otherwise, or if a sprinkler is in the way, our maintenance team can come out and take a look and assess with your student. So thanks, Gabby, for putting that back in the chat. So those were a couple of questions around that, around the ceiling and the bed height. And then there was a question about, there have been a couple questions around co-ed housing. And so yes, all of our housing is all gendered. So all genders can live under the same roof. We have single gender rooms. So in our rooms, we are single gendered. So the assignments are done based on the same gender. And so that might mean that a floor of students will have all genders, all types of genders on that same floor. And it's worked really, really well. There's shared restrooms, but those restrooms are single stall restrooms with locking doors. There's single stall showers. The only thing that you see a row of is a row of sinks. So you'll often see students of all genders, just like at your home potentially, brushing their teeth together. And so students can have figured out ways in which they feel comfortable and safe in those communities that are all mixed gendered households. So I would direct your student, if they have concerns, to talk to their RA, their resident assistant, and their RA can help them navigate where they feel comfortable. We do have some single gender floors. And so just so happens that this year that's been highly requested by female identifying students. So we have some female identifying floors that are single gendered. So if your student is feeling that would be more comfortable to them, they could potentially get on a wait list for that if that's feeling better. But essentially all the same rules and regulations apply to all genders of our students. So no matter what gender you are, all the rules and regulations, all of your students signed onto the terms and conditions of their housing contract, as well as the student policies and regulations for the University of California. All of those same rules and policies apply. And then there was a question about kitchen and then vending machines, et cetera. So I want to address that. There are 2 community kitchens in their residence halls, and then there's a community kitchen up in the apartments at the community room. Students will be getting emails about those community kitchens and how to sign up for what we call a kitchen co-op, so that students are maintaining a healthy and safe and clean environment. And so there's a process for that. They'll be getting emails about that next week, and those have sinks and stoves and ovens in them if students are interested in the residence halls to use those. Our apartments are all equipped with their own kitchens, so all the people in that apartment share that same kitchen, and so they'll be working together to share that. And then there are a few vending machines around the college that are self-service vending machines. We have some in our recreation lounge, which will start to be open to students starting, I think, this next week. We also have vending machines up in our apartment building 3 laundry room area. There's also some vending machines on the ground floor of social sciences too. So very quickly, your students will find out that's just in our little vicinity, but there's vending machines all across the campus, and they'll start to find out where those locations are. We are avoiding single-use water bottles on this campus, so that's something to pay attention to. And in fact, single-use drinks, we're really trying to avoid particularly the use of plastic. So some of our campus vendors are really doing only cans or other things like that. So water, we ask that they use the water refillable stations that are located all across campus in our residence halls, apartments, as well as in social sciences. Right up here, there's a couple of water filling stations. So we ask that students get a refillable water bottle and use that. So I know with COVID, we've gone back and forth. So we have a lot more single-use drink bottles all across campus this year than we ever have. So it's kind of this dance between sustainability and safety that we're trying to hold both at the same time. So some of those vending machines may not have the type of water that your student is looking for, but continue to reach out and ask their RA where they can find what they need. So hopefully that addresses some of those questions.
So there's a question about the long lines for dining. And so on campus, the Rachel Carson dining hall is currently undergoing renovations. And so we are experiencing longer lines for dining. And one of the ways that we're adjusting to this is that at colleges 9 and 10 dining, we have overflow dining spaces in the multi-purpose room, and we are reducing the use and the scheduling of the MPR multi-purpose room for other events because we want to keep the line sort of moving through quickly, and so that students can eat and find spaces to have their meals. Sarah, did you want to say anything more about dining and overflow?
Yeah, and I'd say COVID or no COVID, always the beginning of the year, Flora, wouldn't you agree that we always have a big line because students are all going to the meal all at the same time because they want to, they have a break in between orientation sessions, or they want to go as a group, and we want to encourage that, but it just means that there's more of a line. So students will notice that as classes start and schedules shift and change, and we open up for continuous dining, meaning dining is open from like 7 a.m. till almost midnight. You'll start to see, and students will start to see different patterns around dining, but it always takes a couple weeks to kind of get through that big push. And the fact that the dining halls right now are open for limited meal periods because classes haven't started yet. So there's a little bit of an adjustment period. So I would just encourage your student to be patient, maybe go at a little bit of an off hour. And especially when classes start, that'll really start to shift and change because students' classes are at all times of day and night. And so they'll be eating at various times throughout the day and the evening. So it'll start to adjust as things go.
And finally, there was a question, Sarah, about parking permits.
Oh, thanks, Flora. I remember seeing that in the chat. Yeah, so parking permits, again, our TAPS website is the place to go. They have a whole section on parking permits and who's eligible, and if your student is eligible or even not eligible, what the process is to get to be eligible, depending on the circumstances for each student. And so that website, thank you, Gabby, would be the best place to send your student to so that they can access the type of permit that they need, depending on their circumstances. So direct your student there. Great. Awesome, thanks, Gabby. And perfect timing because we're just over time, but I think we got to most of the questions. And if we didn't, we are saving the chat. We'll make sure to address any questions that we didn't get to this evening on our resources page, which is our same families page that Gabby has been referencing throughout, where this recording will live, as well as all of the websites that we've listed and indicated today. We'll have all of those on that page. And then if we we didn't get to any questions, we'll be sure to post the responses on that same website so you can reference it in the future. And thank you all for being here and joining us this evening. And we hope that both our welcome video and tonight has been informative. And please do not hesitate to reach out to us, even though we're bound by FERPA, as Flora said. We are always happy to receive your information and try to help you and help us to support your student in the best way possible. So thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you. Take good care.
The student life side of the college. Hopefully we will be able to answer all of your questions from a holistic perspective, all the different ways in which your students are involved and engaged with us at our colleges. And if we don't know the answer to something, we will certainly point you in the right direction and share the resource or the link where you can find that information to the best of our abilities. And if we don't get to all the questions today, that's okay. We also, again, on that family's website, not only will we include these videos, but we'll also include all the different links and resources that we reference throughout, as well as anything that we don't get to, we'll be sure to answer on that website. So the way that the format works this evening is we're open to answering any of the questions that come through the chat. You can just chat it to everyone so everyone can see the questions, because I guarantee you're not alone in the questions that you may have. And we can, again, try to respond accordingly. And we'll be kind of looking for themes throughout, trying to address as many of the questions as we can. But that's really the format for this evening, is to be able to be here, to be present with you, and to be able to welcome you to our colleges and answer as many questions as we can. So any other introductory comments, Flora, that you want to share?
No, I just wanted to say that it's wonderful having the students on campus. The campus feels transformed. People are super excited, and yeah, it's like just breathing new life here on the campus. So it's been really great.
Yeah, thanks, Flora. I agree. It's great energy. We've had students throughout the entire pandemic. Colleges 9 and 10 has been the host of residential students, but very few students. And it was, you know, we'd only see them meandering through every once in a while. And now the campus feels full and vibrant. And it's been wonderful to even meet some of you. Hopefully, if you have a student that's living on campus, I was able to meet a few family members throughout the course of the last several days. And I did get a question or a comment directly to me that I'll just take a minute to address, since we are talking about move-in. You know, move-in looked really different this year than it has in any other year. So we apologize for any of the bumps that you may have experienced. I understand that sounds like someone came in yesterday, and yesterday was really different than Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday were the 4 main days of move-in. And then this week is for continuing students only. And it's also really different. It's coming directly to the college. There's not as much kind of fanfare or directions and people on site. Obviously, we have our teams here to support, to give keys, etc. But my apologies if your experience yesterday wasn't as clear as the other days. That wasn't our intention, but it definitely, the publications that went out was that those 4 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, were the big, huge days that had a lot more folks, you know, in all the various locations across campus. So our apologies for any missteps, and I'm glad that folks are getting in and finding their way. If you have yet to move your student in tomorrow or any of the following days, please come directly to the housing office now. So come to the College 9 and College 10 Residential Life and Housing Office. It's located in the College 9 residence halls, and that's where our really capable staff will be able to give you your keys and guide you to where you're headed. So thank you for that. And then I'm starting to see some populated questions. So one of the questions is about tuition fees. and when they're due and what the specific dates are. And so all of that is publicized on one of our calendars through financial aid and business services offices. So if Gabby can find that link, she can go ahead and post that there. We also have a housing calendar that also talks about like if your student is living in housing, when their housing fees would be due, etc. So there might be a few links there that we can find to place in the chat for you to be able to find those dates and deadlines. But that's all guided centrally by our housing office, our financial aid office, and student business services. So hopefully that's pointing you in the right direction. And then there's definitely this next question is about being affiliated with College 9 or College 10, but not living there. And so that's definitely the case for several of our students. And even in a typical year, we usually only have first and second year students primarily who are living with us at our college. But we've had some years, and even this year, where we're having housing is very impacted. So we're having to have many of our continuing students not live within our colleges at College 9 and College 10. But we are still having all of our Welcome Week events that are open to all of our affiliates, and all of our affiliates, no matter where they lived, got welcome emails from our college, not only our advising team, but also our activities team, letting them know how it is that they can get involved and letting them know what the schedule is. And our schedule is actually on our Google Calendar, which is linked to our main websites. And the students, when they have a UCSC email account, which they do, they're part of the Gmail suite. They have a Google Calendar. They can add the 9-10 events calendar and see all of the events that they're included to participate in. We also have a Discord channel that's really active, that students were invited to also through their UCSC email accounts. So no matter where they live, if they're even studying remotely this year, there's ways that students can still be involved. A lot of our welcome weeks were also virtual. So again, it doesn't matter where they live, they were able to participate. So have your student check their UCSC email, have them add the College 9 and College 10 events calendar to their calendar so that they can start to get involved in some of the programs and activities that are affiliated with our college. So if a student is living elsewhere on campus, they're also welcome to participate in particularly the residential life-based programs that are happening. So their RA might plan a floor meeting or a floor outing of some kind or another. And it doesn't matter their affiliation, they can certainly participate. We want them to get to know their floor mates, their roommates, and where they're living. But if they're a first year student, for example, we're wanting them to or even a second year, we'd love for them to participate in some of our welcome week activities that are more college-based, maybe around core or around our advising team, or focused on some of the activities that we're doing to engage students and get them to know some of the leadership opportunities that we have at College 9 and College 10. So point them in those directions, their UCSC email and their Google Calendar. And then the next question I'm seeing, at least if I'm going in order, is around lower division courses with large class sizes being held remotely and the option to exist in person, et cetera. So Flora, can you talk a little bit about?
Yeah, so because of the COVID protocols, there are some classes that are very, very large classes. And so the university is, it's in person up to a certain size. And for example, our core courses, there are about 26, 27 students per section. And so we are able to have in-person classes for College 9 and College 10 core. But in the past, we had these large plenaries, which were like an event. It could be a panel or a speaker, in which in the past, pre-COVID times, we had around 400 students sort of packed into our multi-purpose room. And so we're not allowed to have those types of events right now because there's so many people indoors. So what we're doing for our plenaries, for instance, is we're holding them remotely. They're being held via Zoom. Students can watch a video. They can actually have an asynchronous or asynchronous opportunity to engage with our speakers. So Lou, for your question, the lectures, for most of those really large classes, I would suspect that the faculty are probably recording lectures and making them possible to view on a Canvas site. But for the large classes, there probably are sections where students meet with teaching assistants, for instance, and the faculty will likely have office hours. So I definitely know that that you want your student to be able to engage with the material. And what I'm going to recommend, and one of the takeaway messages that I have for you all tonight, is to really encourage your students to get to know the faculty during office hours. As a faculty member myself, I can say that oftentimes for office hours, students don't come unless a paper is due or it's right before the exams or something like that. But these hours are posted for all faculty, and students are welcome to sort of drop in. Sometimes you can make an appointment outside of office hours as well. And I really encourage your student to go and meet with faculty, even if they don't have a specific question about a grading issue or about the material, but just want to meet their faculty and get to know them and share a little bit about your students' interest and articulate with the faculty members themselves. So it's now one last thing about that is sometimes students are really shy about talking with faculty, like why, if I went to an office hours, like what would we talk about? So I encourage students oftentimes to go and check out the faculty website, maybe even read one of the publications of that faculty member, to go in and be able to share and have questions about the faculty research and how that articulates with their students' interest. And I can tell you that I've had students who have done that in my office hours who ended up doing independent research with me because I was so impressed with how engaged they were and how much initiative they showed. So, so that's how I would answer your question, Lou. And then for Pamela, for welcome events for continuing students. So absolutely, and I'll start and then I'll pass it over to Sarah. We know that for our sophomores, they did not have their first year here on campus. And so we are intentionally planning events with a sophomore focus. And for example, in the core course last year for our sophomores, they were remote. And now that they're on campus, we are planning some activities, most of them outdoors. Since fall is so beautiful here in Santa Cruz, we have things like tours of the campus, different hikes, different performances, really targeted towards our sophomores to get them to build a sense of community, to familiarize them with the campus, and really to get them engaged.
Yeah, thank you, Flora. And we yesterday's cornucopia event was focused on second year students. And I know I talked to a couple of second year students today who said it was really awesome to connect with some people that they had only met on Zoom, right? So I'm glad that students are already finding their way to building some of those connections. And as Flora said, that's definitely on all of our mind. And we have several different events that are focused for our sophomore students or our continuing students, really gearing some programs and events, both from the advising perspective, the core perspective, as Flora mentioned, but also from all of the just being able to socially engage with students again. Once again, they are needing to meet each other. So maybe they met on the Discord channel or on Zoom classes, but really wanting, if they are here and present, trying to figure out lots of different ways to engage them. So we have a lineup of different events throughout the beginning of fall that are going to be very focused on and geared towards our sophomores. And then also we're gearing programs to our first year students too. So right now, as we speak, is the first year only cornucopia event, which is cornucopia is this great big event down at near our East Field and athletics recreation center, where all of the different student organizations and clubs and student groups all come and introduce themselves to other students. It's like a big tabling event, so they can go find the interests that they have and be able to get connected with other students. So that's happening right now for our first year students. And there was a question about how are these students getting to some of these events? Are there mentors or other folks? And we have a college guide program, and our college guides are working with all of our first year students and even our sophomore students to engage with them. They have a group of a cohort of students that they're working with. They're connecting with them through Discord and email and other forms of communication. I think even one group has a WhatsApp text message thing going on, and they're connecting each other, either doing things again in person or virtually, but making sure that folks are getting their questions answered, pointing them in the right direction. The CG's College Guides just ran a whole bunch of tours yesterday, actually starting on Sunday and yesterday, and then they've been doing some social events in the evening, some of which are hybrid so that our remote students can be participating, some of which are are fully virtual and then some that are fully in person. So our College Guide program is one of those. And then we also have our peer advisors that have just started and have come back and are in our front office and in our college office. And peer advisors have been helping with our advising team to, again, get to know students and engage students from a peer-to-peer level. And they're the ones that can help address academic-based questions and or get them connected to our amazing advising team. So those college guides, the peer advisors, and then if your students are living on campus, they have an RA or a resident assistant, and those RAs are living on the floor with your students and guiding them again through. They've had the first round of their first floor meetings. Those have all been happening the last few days, and they'll be doing kind of a second round of those in the coming weeks to ensure that students are not only getting to know their roommates, but that they're also getting to know each other on the floor and setting expectations. And then the RAs are going to be helping each of the roommate pairs facilitate a conversation around roommate agreements so that they can, you know, set schedules and cleanliness habits and other things like that. So that's all happening as well. So a lot of peer support, and there's even tutoring programs. We could go on and on and on about all the peer programs that we have for our students that can help to guide your student in the right direction. But I think I hope that addressed that one question.
Yeah. And just to chime in really quickly, for the core course at the college, this is a really important class because we actually support students to make the transition to the college and the university. And we also have a team of peer navigators. And these are students who took the core, did really well, and have been trained to work with the faculty and with our team of advisors and staff here at the colleges to support your students academically in the core course as well. So as Sarah mentioned, a lot of support.
Great. I want to make sure I get to some of these earlier on questions, and I'm seeing some themes, but one is around dates for any closures during breaks, etc. So all of the calendars, the academic calendar and the housing calendars can both be found online, and Gabby can probably add those links into the chat. But we remain open for the fall break period as well as the spring break period. The only break period that we have traditionally closed is for winter break. Student stuff can stay in the room, but students are usually asked to leave. However, last year during COVID, we remained open because we didn't want students to be traveling at that time of year. So depending on how things are going with COVID, we may again remain open, but not to worry if your student needs housing during the winter closure. We always have what's called a winter hostel. So we're able to house students throughout the year. But thank you, Gabby, you've already added the academic calendar, and then there's also a housing calendar so that you can follow along in those dates. And then speaking of dates, there've been a couple of questions about Family Day and when is Family Day? And yes, our website is out of date. It's still promoting last year's Family Date because we haven't yet set a date for this year. We're purposefully kind of waiting to see. We would love to do an in-person Family Day, but we just don't know if that's going to be possible based on university regulations with COVID. And so we usually set that date somewhere in the fall, and we start to advertise it at the end of fall. So you can start looking on our website again. I'd say in December is a safe bet, so we can get a sense of if it's going to be virtual or if it's going to be in person, and we'll communicate that. So again, our websites, the family websites, are the best way to keep track of that. So I know there were some questions around that. And then let's see, I'm just scrolling through to see if there's other related ones around dates. Okay, I think there's another question or set of questions about furniture in the room or what to expect in the rooms. So for students that are living on campus, the rooms all come equipped with, extra long single beds to dressers, desk, chairs, bookshelf. Maybe there's an armoire or a closet of some kind, and all of the furniture that's assigned to that room needs to stay in the room for the duration of the year, because it is all assigned to that room, so it needs to stay there. So we unfortunately don't have place to store it or anything like that. So we ask that students leave the furniture in the room. I've seen students get really creative if they need to change out their desk chair for something more comfortable. They've use their other chair in their closet to put shoes on or whatever. So we do ask that all the furniture stays in the room. So that was one question related to what's in the room. And then there are a couple questions around housing in terms of folks that are still on the wait list or might want to be on the wait list for a future quarter. And yes, right now we are completely full. We are really impacted. We still have several hundred people on our wait list, which is not usual for this time of year. We are in unprecedented times. And I know that phrase gets used a lot, but it really is so true. Santa Cruz County at the same time is finding itself in a very challenging housing market. And our campus also has not been able to build new buildings in quite some time. And so I encourage your student to stay on the wait list, keep emailing our housing office at 9housing10@UCSC, and Gabby can put that into the chat. The next 2 weeks, we have a housing freeze, meaning we use this time to assess who's here and who's not. And usually every year there's a few folks that end up not making it to campus for whatever reason. They've changed their mind or plans have changed. And so there is a chance still that we will be able to house some students. We do have some spaces across campus as well that have opened up. It depends on what's available. And so some students have been declining the offers because they're, maybe one space in a triple room. And if they weren't hoping for a triple room, they decline it. But we just really encourage students to be open, be flexible. And for students who are wanting to apply for the winter quarter, I'd say absolutely get their application in during the period of time where we're accepting applications for the winter. And they should check back to their portal regularly and then email us if they have questions again at that 9housing10 email. So that's a little bit about housing. And then there was another question about guarantee and all of that. So right now we're only in a situation where we're guaranteeing first year students housing. It used to be that we guaranteed first and second years. But given the housing crisis and these strange times that we've had, we really tried to prioritize second years this year. So it almost feels like a guarantee for the first and second year still, but we know and recognize that not everyone was able to get housing. We have a large first year class as well. So in terms of the guarantee right now, it's a first year, and then there are certain populations that also have a guarantee for longer periods of time. EOP students, international students, some of our scholarship or honors students have some different kinds of guarantees. But a guarantee doesn't mean a particular place, right? It doesn't mean a particular type of room either. And so we do our best to honor those guarantees, but then we also try to prioritize, like I said, to our first and our second years. And then every year we seem to have a little bit of space for some juniors and seniors. It depends on the year, depends on the demand. I encourage your students to apply during the application period. Make sure that they do that on time so that they can get their application in and be considered. All right, I'll take a breath and take a look.
Yeah.
Did you see any other questions?
Yeah, so there was a question about tutoring for students and different types of support. And so maybe I'll ask Gabby to add the links for MSI and LSS. Learning support services. Absolutely. So there's other forms of tutoring support on campus available for students, everything from learning support services and MSI tutoring to the Writing Center, the Westside Writing Center, where students can go and get some support on, for example, drafts on essays and things like that. And thank you very much for hosting this event. You're very, very welcome. Thanks. Let's see. And so I wanted to address the long lines. So we are definitely well aware that that lines, for example, to get food at the dining hall and the cornucopia event, and a couple of thoughts on that. So the first is that for the dining hall, one of the dining halls at Rachel Carson is undergoing renovation, so the timing is not wonderful. So we actually do have some longer lines because students from Rachel Carson College are eating at other dining halls. So that's one issue. One of the ways that we're grappling with it is that we have overflow dining in our multi-purpose room, or our MPR. The MPR is often used for different events, but we are being very strict about not hosting events so that we can actually have dining in the multi-purpose room. So the students go in, they get their food, and they're able to sort of eat in the tables in this large multi-purpose room space to help with some of that. And then also once classes start, and we were already seeing a little bit of this. In the very beginning, students tend to want to eat at the same time. They want to go with their dorm mates. It's a very, very social. But then once their schedules start getting set, I think what we're going to start seeing is that their visits to the dining hall will sort of even out over time as they have different class schedules and so forth. And so our college's 9 and 10 dining hall it's open early and it stays open late. So and I wonder, and Sarah, maybe you can address this for the cornucopia event. I wonder if part of that is just also badges being checked. And so, yeah, so go ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's all sorts of new systems this year as we get back up and running fully in person. Like I said, we've had students all this whole entire time through the pandemic, but things have shifted and changed, as I know you all have experienced and lived through. And one of the changes is having our badge system, and we're needing to check badges for students to participate in large scale events, whether they're indoors or outdoors. And so that's causing some more of those lines. And I did see that line for cornucopia today, and I recognize that that's probably no fun for the folks standing in line, but I did see them, communicating and meeting each other in line too. So hopefully they're making use of the lines by getting to know some of their fellow students as they're waiting. A lot of that has already shifted. I've seen the shift in the dining already today. We did not have the lines for breakfast or lunch like I've seen the last few days. So I know that that's starting to even out now that the dining halls are open a little bit more consistently. And again, we just ask for students' patience and to be ready to read the communication that our dining program has put out there, or that our housing office puts out there in terms of having your badge ready or having it all ready to go so that when they get to the front of the line, it can go very smoothly. So as students get used to those new systems, and as we as staff get used to our systems as well, I think a lot of that is going to start to even out. And like I said, I've already seen some of that start to do that already this year, or today and yesterday, I should say. And then I saw a question earlier around the COVID and percentage of vaccinated folks versus unvaccinated folks, and what are the, what are some of the protocols around that? And then I got a direct message about unvaccinated and vaccinated students in the same room, et cetera. So I'd be happy to address some of those questions. So you're right, we as housing and even our faculty members who are teaching on the academic side, we do not know a student's vaccination status. So just because a student has a green badge doesn't mean that they're vaccinated. It means that they are either vaccinated or they've been granted an exception. And I don't know the percentage offhand. That number has shifted and changed. I do know we're at a 98.5% compliance rate, which is awesome. It means that 98.5% of our students are compliant with the policy, meaning they've either applied for an exception and it's been granted, or they have proved their vaccine. So that's really great news. We obviously want to get to 100%, but 98.5 for right now is a really good percentage. And I can see that already. I saw on move-in days that students were providing their proof with our student health center. So I think we're going to probably be closer to 100% by tomorrow. So I know that that has been increasing all week. And the requirements for unvaccinated students are that they test every 4 days. So let me back up. All students who moved into campus, all students who are moving onto campus, they have to test, everyone has to test between 5 and 7 days of their arrival on campus. So whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, they're all testing right now within the next 5 to 7 days. The way they do that is go onto their Health eMessenger program, which is our student health center's website. They can easily just go in and go to the appointments section and schedule an appointment. It's all free. It doesn't matter what insurance they have. The testing program is all free for all of our students, and even staff and faculty. Staff and faculty and vaccinated students can get tested once a week if they wish to. And again, they go to that same program and sign up for a time. We have different testing kiosks all across campus. The one that's closest to colleges 9 and 10 is at the Merrill Cultural Center. So it's just a hop, skip, and a jump through the trees, so they can get tested easily there. And then unvaccinated students, as I was saying, will be testing every 4 days, and they must remain compliant with that until which time that changes. And then in terms of students living together who are vaccinated and unvaccinated. We absolutely know that this is the situation that we're in. We cannot know that information. That is all protected by HIPAA, which is a federal law, health protection law. So we can't know that information. And so we did our best to make assignments based on people's preferences and what they listed in their housing application. And then, as I alluded to earlier, there's a series of first floor meetings that are happening, as well as roommate agreement conversations that are happening, where we really dig into some of the COVID responsibilities that they have and safety protocols, so that both vaccinated and unvaccinated students they don't have to divulge their status, but they do need to be talking about what their agreements are for their room. Are they wearing masks inside? Are they not having guests, or are they agreeing to certain guests, or what is that looking like? And so those conversations are facilitated with our RAs and also our coordinators for residential education. And so those folks are having those conversations and helping students navigate those dialogues. So I know that that'll be a great resource for them as they start getting to know one another and setting expectations for the whole floor as well. And then in terms of if they are leaving campus for any sort of break, going home or anything, they don't need to necessarily notify us at all, although it's always nice for the RA to know and kind of be able to keep track of who's here and who's not. But there's no requirement for that. And then in terms of testing upon return, it is encouraged, since we don't track the comings and goings of folks, it is encouraged that folks test within the first few days of their return. And if they have a question about, when they should test or how that would work, the Student Health Center could answer that question, but they can easily just go online and make their own appointment, like I said before, and get a test after they come back to campus, or even before. If you'd like them to test, if they're coming home to you for any sort of break, you can ask them to get tested a few days before they come back, and they're able to sign up at their leisure to do that. We do ask when students do come back that they monitor their symptoms and that they're doing their symptom check. That's part of the badge system. They're having to do a daily symptom check, and no matter where they're coming and going, they're doing that throughout. So we're really wanting and expecting our students to abide by that and to be compliant with that, so that their badge is green, they can get into classes, they can get into the dining hall, the gym, the library, wherever they're going. But it's also giving us a good sense of how students are doing health-wise, because they're having to fill out that questionnaire. Great, I hope that covers some of the COVID related questions. I'm seeing a question about food and to-go meals. And yeah, there's certain parameters that the dining staff is trying to manage in terms of monitoring food, in terms of monitoring number of people that are inside the dining halls at a time, and also trying to manage the system of badge checking and payments, et cetera. And I do know that they're right now using to-go boxes, and students can get a to-go box if they come and ask for a to-go box at the front. And then there's certain allowable amounts of things. They don't want to run out of all the fruit or all the vegetables or all the dessert or all the whatever. So there's certain parameters around that. And so they just ask that students abide by those parameters. So they're trying to just monitor the amount of food and making sure that there's enough food for all the folks that are coming through. So dining, tries to be clear about that and what's on the menu at the different dining halls for the day. And then thank you, Gabby, you posted the dining COVID protocols there. So that's really helpful. And then they will be issuing, and I know that there was a delay, unfortunately, as everything, right? There have been so many supply chain delays all across the country this whole year. And we had one, of course, for our reusable to-go containers that we were hoping to issue to students so that they could easily have that and then wash it out and then be able to use it again for the next meal. So those are coming, and students will be able to get those through the dining hall as well. Great. And then I think I missed a question earlier about not being able to get a hold of a student. And then there was this question that came in around visiting a student and what that would look like. So definitely, first of all, I just encourage you to talk to your student about what the expectations are that you have for communication, whether that's text message or email or phone call, and how frequently, et cetera, so that you don't get nervous if they're missing your calls, et cetera. So maybe just checking in with them about a good time and a good way to reach each each other and what that would be, so that you have good expectations between you and your student. But then if you're not hearing from a student, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at our to our housing office if they're living on campus. That's probably the best place, or to our advising team if they're living off campus, and either our advising team or our housing office. And again, Gabby can put those email addresses. It's 9advising@UCSC or 10advising@UCSC, and then 9housing10 for the housing department. But any of us can reach out to your student and remind them to call home if that's what you're needing, or we can check in on them. We are bound by the Family Educational Rights to Privacy Act, so we may not be able to tell you, oh, not to worry, we just saw your student in the dining hall, but we can, and we do, take your requests really seriously. So if you say you haven't reached your student, then we're going to go knock on their door, or have an RA knock on their door, or we're going to try our best to reach them through our various means to make sure that they're, again, contacting you, or that we're helping them to get the resources or the support that they need, that maybe they've articulated to you, but not to us. So we do our very best to follow up immediately and try to get you into contact with your student. And then, I meant to answer the second part. Sorry, Flora.
Go ahead.
The second part was, can family visit students on campus grounds? And yes, you are able to do that as long as your student gives you permission to do so. So please, we ask that you talk to your student ahead of time, only because all the buildings are locked and not accessible, right? So they just need to know that you're coming. Excuse me. And then we're asking that all visitors do the COVID visitor symptom check before they come to campus. So yes, you are able to visit them.
That's great. So I just wanted to go back to Nalan's question about her son at Gandhi House and being able to connect with folks. And of course, I mean, we have our transfer students, we have our 4-year students, and being able to find your pod, find your community here at UC Santa Cruz is a big reason, I think, why the colleges are such special places, because oftentimes a large Research One university of this size with thousands of students, both graduate and undergraduate, can be a really daunting place. And so the colleges are more intimate living, learning communities. And so what I would recommend is for, we talked about earlier about the college guides and the RAs and sort of like the different types of students who are really here to sort of be social connectors and liaisons with different events and opportunities and so forth. And then the other thing I would really recommend is that colleges 9 and 10 are really lucky, because we have a unit called the Co-Curricular Programs Office, or the COCO as it's known. And the COCO hosts a wide variety of programs for students to really foster their leadership, their team. So for example, for a student who might be a little shy and want to have an opportunity to really be able to engage with other students, one event a program that might be really helpful would be our multicultural community weekend or intercultural community weekend. And those are weekend-long retreats in which students go and they actually get to know another group of students really, really well, because they're doing all these different types of interactive exercises. They're sharing about their backgrounds and identities, and working with staff and student leaders in these sort of facilitated spaces to be able to make these social connections. And what I've heard from students in the past with programs like MCW, ICW, is that we are really able to get students plugged in and for them to start making those friends and those connections. And that's just one example. There's lots of other examples for ways for students to get involved. It could be going and joining a club on campus. It could be going and doing some volunteer work through our wonderful ASER program, which is our apprenticeship and community engaged research program, right? So it's really having students sort of plug in to these different types of offerings that we have. No matter like their shyness or their disposition, there's a place for them here.
Thanks, Flora, for addressing that. And the other group that's coming together, that's kind of changed iterations through the years, this year is called Students for Self-Care. So that group, I think, also is really akin to and I think wanting to support students in their overall wellness, knowing that everyone's lived through this pandemic in really different ways and have had different experiences, whether you're introverted or extroverted, different experiences. And so they're wanting to ensure that all of our students feel like they have a place here and that they can find ways to take care of themselves. And so Students for Self-Care is a group that's going to be starting up in our recreation lounge, actually, which is right in the center of College 9 and College 10. So I think encouraging your student to think about any of these different opportunities that we just talked about is a great starting point. Yeah, and then great, Flora added the STARS program, which is our services for transfer and reentry students, and they have an excellent suite of services as well as peer mentors who really help other fellow transfer students to get their footing here at UCSC. So it's another great resource. Thanks, Flora.
I think we have a question about mailroom and the mailing address.
Yes, so the mailing address was sent to your students' UCSC email account, as well as the code and their mailbox assignment. So it's their mailbox number that you really want to know, as well as the mailing address. It's also listed on our websites, and I think our housing FAQs has it. So perhaps when Gabby finds that, she can drop those in the link so you can see both of the addresses. But you really need the mailbox code from your student so you can get and make sure that your package gets to your student. And our mail rooms are all run by our really talented student staff. We have student mail workers who receive all the packages and mail, and if it's a letter, it goes straight into the box, and students can use their code to get into their box anytime, day or night. And then if they get a package, they'll get an email about it that says, hey, you've got a package, come during our next open hours. And we have a variety of different open hours every day of the week, except for Sundays. So those hours are posted on our website, and they're also emailed to students so that they have the hours that they can next come and get their package. So that's just a little bit about our mailroom. And then I saw a question about Wi-Fi, tips on Wi-Fi connections. And yeah, good question. Do we foresee problems with everyone going onto Zoom at the same time, et cetera? It's true. We had a fully on Zoom last year. No classes were in person. All classes were online. And yes, we had a far less number of students living on campus. But we found that at least at colleges 9 and 10, the Wi-Fi was working great. We didn't have any major complaints on that. So on that front, which is good. We also have lounge spaces where students can go and get Wi-Fi, and outside of a lot of our buildings, you can also get decently good Wi-Fi. Maybe not for a full-on Zoom session with cameras and everything, but it's pretty decent. That you can find it even outside some of our buildings. If students are having residential network connection issues, I would really encourage them to reach out to Res Wi-Fi or ITS department, and they can help to troubleshoot if it's a hardware issue or something like that. And they can help to troubleshoot all those various connection issues. And then we're also, like I said, if students are trying to get on to Zoom at the same time, and they're finding that they're having some connection issues or even just distraction issues. They're living in the same room, and all three of them are trying to get onto an online class at the same time. We have several different lounge spaces and quiet study spaces where students can go. You can even get a room at one of our libraries. So Science and Engineering Library, or our main campus library, also has rooms that students can sign up to use if they're feeling like that would be a better place for them to get onto their online classes. So thanks, Gabby, for adding that link as well.
So I love this one question, like what are some questions that we should be asking that other family members were asking in our previous Q&As? And before I answer that, I just wanted to flag a couple things for you all. So tomorrow from 11 to 12 and then 1 to 2, I will be meeting in person with students outside with my mask on with our core course coordinators, to talk with them about academics and the core course, and really just to have an opportunity to chat with your students. So it's just going to be in the grassy area, the lawn between social sciences 1 and 2. So before and after lunch. And so college 9 will be at 11 and college 10 will be at 1 o'clock. And so please encourage your students to come by and say hello. I would love to meet them and start putting names to faces. One of the other questions that came up and I thought would be a great one to sort of bring up with you all is how do I know that my student's doing okay, right? What if, that my student is, going to classes and, and sort of keeping up with assignments and doing all right. And so earlier today, I met with all of my faculty for the core course at College 9 and College 10. And one of the things that we're doing is we have a software program called Slug Success, and it enables us to coordinate notes and files about a student from the college side, from the department side, and then other units across the university to just make sure how the student is doing. So let's say that we have a student who seems to be not going to classes often. So the core course the instructor will put a note in Slug Success, and the advising team will follow up and make sure that that student's doing okay, right? So we know that this has been a really difficult, almost 2 years now for everybody. And we want to make sure that students are not falling through the cracks. And that's one way of using this, this new program, Slug Success, and coordinating with our faculty, our staff, and our student leaders and and just to support your students. So that's one question that got up earlier. Okay. Oh, okay. And so give me a permission so that you can talk. Okay. So one of the things that we wanted to mention to you is that through the Family Educational Records and Privacy Act, FERPA, which is a federal law, when students are, when they're minors, and before they enter sort of the university setting, you are their contact for their records and their educational records. But then once they are an adult and go off to university, they are the ones who control their educational records. So what that means, and Sarah alluded to it earlier, that there are FERPA protections in terms of the information that we can actually provide to the parents, the families of our students. And what you would want to do, and Gabby has already put it in the chat because she's amazing, is to check out the possibility of filing for a waiver. And if your student basically has a waiver of FERPA, what that means is that we can actually share the educational records with you, but without it, we are federally not able to do that.
Yeah, and then
and where is the meeting tomorrow, Adrienne? Sorry, the meeting tomorrow from at 11 o'clock for College 9 and 1 o'clock for College 10. It's just outside on the grassy lawn here at Colleges 9 and 10 between Social Sciences buildings 1 and 2.
And all that information is on our calendar, right, Flora, in terms of our 9-10 events calendar. So you were asking if students were emailed, and yes, they were emailed at the beginning of Welcome Week, kind of all the information and where they can find all that information. And it's also listed on our 9 and 10 calendars. So if students are wondering where to go, that's where they can go. And then there was a question earlier about some of the lounges still being closed. And yes, that is correct. Some of them are still being closed because we've been using them to prep and be prepared for all of our students to come, making posters and using it for spaces for our student staff to gather and be able to take breaks, etc. So all of those are getting cleaned and getting opened in the coming weeks. We also have our Terry Freitas Cafe that will be opening in early October. That space is opened when we have our student staff all trained and ready to go. So that'll be opening. So yes, your students will start to see many of these larger lounge spaces start to open in the coming weeks, although Namaste Lounge, which is our main big lounge, is open, and then the College 10 library and annex spaces, and then the annex at College 9 are also starting to get open now that move-in is all finished. So they'll start to see all of these things in the coming days and weeks start to open up. But speaking of hours of places like the gym and the dining halls and our lounges and all of these other campus resources, many of our campus resources are getting, are changing up their hours. Some might be virtual hours, some might be in-person hours. And so I would encourage your student to, whatever resource it is that they're trying to access, even Banana Joe's or other things like that, that they should go to the either the dining website or the gym website or our library website and find out what those hours are. And it always takes a little bit of time, whether we're in COVID times or not, always takes a little bit of time in the fall for things to get ramped up again and for hours to all be more accessible. So if you if your student is wondering what those are, and they should be checking those various websites, and they'll be able to get up-to-date information about what hours are virtual, what hours are in person, when they can access some of these resources. All the dining halls that are going to be open are open. It's just some of the restaurants and other spaces that aren't open yet. So all the dining halls are open across campus that are going to be open this year. So Rachel Carson College is the only one that is not open because they're undergoing renovations. In fact, the entire building is halfway gone. All the other dining halls that will be open are open. It's just some of these other cafes that are still getting settled. Yeah, and so all these links, Gabby's already answered this, but all these links and all of our recording from this evening will be posted on our family web pages. So if you didn't catch all of these things that we've said today, you can watch the recording again or check the website for all of these different links and resources that we have mentioned. Great, I'm just looking through the questions because I know we're getting close to time. Wanting to make sure that I am getting to everything. There was a question about sophomores. Will sophomores get emailed? Yes, sophomores were also emailed, I know, by our advising team, specifically to let them know what some of their specific sophomore, as well as our activities team also did do some outreach to our sophomores. So they should be checking their UCSC email. What's the market? Is that the question? I'm not sure I know what that one is about. Like I was saying, I think there are several different markets and cafes that just haven't all fully opened yet, some of which are operated by vendors who are off campus. And so some of them are just getting reopened. Yeah, so there was a question about curfew time, and that's maybe one question that has been asked in the past that we didn't fully get to, but around campus safety and emergency response. So maybe I'll take that and roll with it a little bit. There's no curfew time for the campus. The campus is open 24/7. It is public land too. It is a public institution, so it is public land. But as you may have noticed, we only have 2 entrances and exits for campus, so it actually limits a lot of traffic and people just coming on board. We're also like a good 20-minute walk from downtown, or maybe even 30 or 45, depending on how long or how short you like to walk. So the campus really, we're very lucky in that I feel like we have very few and not as many situations of crime or issues of safety as some of our fellow campuses do. All of our crime statistics are posted on our UC Police Department website. So we have a University of California Police Department here on our campus with sworn officers. We also have a community safety program where our community safety officers, who are professional staff, work from 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. every night and are in all of our various colleges, checking in with students, helping them with lockouts, dealing with any sort of emergency that comes up. And then we also have we have an on-call system with our resident assistants and our coordinators for residential education. So that helps with any sort of in-the-moment emergencies. We also have a fire department with EMTs on staff, and the fire department office is right up near Crown and Merrill colleges, which is right across the ravine from colleges 9 and 10. So we benefit from that as well. We also have a cruise alert system. Students can register their cell phone number with Cruise Alert. I really encourage students to do this so that they can get up-to-date text messages right to their cell phone if there's any sort of campus emergency or anything that they need to be aware of. Cruise Alert is one way that we try to keep our campus informed. And then if there's ever something going on, there's always an emergency bar at the top of our website. So for example, last year during our fire evacuations, it gave up-to-date information right at the top of our main website, the ucsc.edu website. All year, it's actually had COVID response information at the top because that's been our latest emergency, obviously. So that would be a place for students to take a look in terms of how it is that they can remain safe. There's also an escort program. So if they're wanting support walking to and from the library at night, for example, they can access that as well. Okay, I think that addresses the curfew and some safety information that I thought would be worth sharing. There was another student about, can students take food back to their dorms? Yes, they can. They can even have little mini fridges or microwaves in their dorm rooms. They just can't have open heating sources. So anything that's like a hot plate or anything like that, they cannot have. That's against the rules. But they can take food back and microwave it up or keep it in their fridge or eat it in their buildings. That's totally fine. And then the market that's above the dining hall, I think that's what you're talking about. My apologies, I wasn't even thinking about that. It is above the college's 9 and 10 dining hall, and it's our understanding that that will be open eventually as well, like those other campus restaurants. So yes. Great, and it looks like Flora answered the transfer question. So Flora, did you have anything else to add around that, or I think we're about time?
No. I think that we're about time, but there were some small questions that we didn't get to. For example, the name of the RA at Gandhi House, I think, was one question, and so forth. So, we please, if there were questions that that were really sort of specific, or you want to follow up, I'm going to go ahead and put my my email here, and you can also and Sarah is going to do the same. So yeah, please follow up if we didn't get to your specific question, or if there's anything that you need to ask us. And I just really wanted to thank everyone for your time. I feel like this is, I mean, obviously classes start on Thursday, and so there's just a lot going on, but this is an ongoing relationship that we have, not only with your student, but with you. So please check in with us, reach out to us. And as information comes up, as long about like, family day, and we'll be posting information on our family's website that Gabby sent the link to. And everyone just take really good care. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yes, thank you so much. We appreciate everyone's participation today and all of your great questions. And again, this will get posted on our family's website along with all the resources and contact information. So please go back to our family pages and you can find all of this information there. So again, thank you so much for participating this evening. We look forward to continuing to support your students. And again, congratulations and welcome to College 9 and College 10 and UCSC.